All right, so now it's time to connect our two screens or activities together. And the way that we're doing that is through our activity main. And the idea is that we're going to click on this button, which currently isn't doing anything. And when we click on that button, the operating system is going to load a new activity, or in other words, our activity segue, which is a screen that we want to move our users to. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do is just verify where we're headed. So we're talking about this button, and so we need to apply some kind of action to the user clicking or pressing on that button. So remember that activity main is being generated from our main activity, and so when the operating system or the user opens our application, the content view is set to activity main, and that's the screen that comes up. And this is also therefore the screen where our button resides. And so we need to, first of all, we need to get a hold of that button in our code so that we can access it, so we can apply a click event to it. So I'm going to create a hold on that button. Right off the bat, I'm getting this pop-up window that's saying Alt-Enter. In other words, should I being the editor, should I import the library that you need to work with that button? So I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, which should then, if I look up in my imports, click on my drop down for the imports, that package is now being imported so that I have access to the button widget and all of the button widget class and all of its properties and methods. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm just going to call it button, and we need to use something called find view by ID, which makes sense because we are trying to get a view, our text view in this case, and by ID simply means what is the ID that you assign to the widget that you want to use. We're going to use the R or resource class to help us narrow down or drive down to our ID, and then we should have a drop down for button rent. So that's where the 3-letter prefix BTN is handy, because I know that's the button that I created, and so that's what we were going to get a handle on. And so now we've got a handle on our button utilizing this variable button. So the next step is to apply a click event to that button. So when the user clicks on the button, we then can write code to open up our new activity. And so to do that, we're going to use the variable that we created, button, and we're going to use the method setOnClickListener. Okay, and so now what we need to do is we're going to put in an anonymous, you can write a method elsewhere. We're just going to put in an anonymous method. We're going to create a new, we're going to use the class view, and class view has a capital on click listener that enables us to create a click listener for this button. So you should notice that I've got this red light bulb here. I'm going to click on it and it says implement method. So when we use this view on click listener, it's required that we have implemented this code that I have automatically put in. So that has gotten rid of our warning red light bulb. I have a public method called onClick, which is needed, and inside this method is what will be done when the user clicks on that button. So a lot of work just to say create a click listener for the button, but that's what you have to do. And so now the next point is that we need to ask the operating system to load a new activity. So the way that we do this is we're going to use a method called startActivity. And notice here in the highlight, it needs what's called an intent. So that's the argument we need to send. So what an intent is, it's a message, if you will, or a way for us to have an Android components speak to other or call other Android components. In this case, what we're doing is we're going to utilize an intent to open up a new activity. Intents can also be for lots of other things, like perhaps we need to use an Android component outside of our application, like tapping into a maybe the that's a very well communicated. Perhaps we need to utilize a phone component or a camera component or something along those lines. So whenever you do that, you need to use what's called an intent. It's an intent to start a new activity. It's an intent to utilize some other components, maybe broadcast a message. So we'll see more of that as we move along in the semester. But for now, we'll just say that we're going to create a new intent. And our intent is going to be, it takes two parts. Again, I need to hit Alt-Enter to import the proper package in order to utilize it. So I have a new intent. And in this new intent, you have to send two arguments. One is say who is sending the intent. And so we have a link or communication between the two components. And in this case, I'm going to say main activity this. So this is the asker of the intent or the creator of the intent. Main activity this. And then, oh, I spelled activity wrong. Activity. I was so busy talking. Activity. There we go. Main activity this. Did I still spell it wrong? Yes, I did. Spelling is a thing. Okay, there we go. And then what is the activity? In our case, we're opening up the new layout that we created. And so what we're going to do is we'll type out the name of that class, segue.class. And just to kind of reiterate that point, if we look at segue.class, so we're opening up this class. And so when we instantiate an object of this class, when it is created, it's going to set the content view to activity segue, which is what we want to do. So by instantiating this particular class, that particular layout is going to be displayed. So let's go ahead and see if that works. So we're going to get our emulator fired up. And so now when we hit on the Rent Segue button, it should open up our new activity, and there it is. So we have now successfully created this application where we have learned about our strings XML file. We've learned about what an activity is. We've looked at how we can link our two pages together, utilizing our pages, that's a bad word, in this case our activities or our screens. And we've done that by creating a click event for our button that is opening up our new application. Spelling is a thing, isn't it? Oh well, this wasn't about spelling. This was about creating this application. Anyway, so I hope that gets you fired up for the next week's lesson that we'll do.